He's in daydream land over there.
He's answering work email.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Basic AF. I'm the co-host, Tom Anderson, and I'm joined, as always, by the one and only, thank goodness, Jeff Battersby. Hello, Jeff.
Goodness. I love you, too. You're the best, Tom.
I know you do.
Thank goodness I'm the one and only. I don't know how
My
to
brother,
take that.
Jeff.
My brother. My sleepy-eyed brother, Tom.
Yes.
How you doing, pal?
I'm doing good. If I could see out of both eyes, it'd be great.
Oh, great. Good. We'll try not to poke you in either of them.
Well, if you do, hit the bad one. Don't hit the good one.
Okay, great. Yeah, and we have guests
We
again,
do.
Tom, which always makes the show better.
Yes.
Way better, actually.
As if the intro didn't tip that off.
Yeah, right.
Yep. All right, so once again joining us, who's practically the third member of the show at this point, it is Joe Moyer. Hello, Joe. Good to see you again.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me back.
By the
That's
way,
an honor,
one of
by
the
way.
top downloaded episodes is the journaling guide. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Awesome. Good to hear that.
So, yeah. Really good stuff. Yeah,
I think that one struck a chord. Yeah.
Yeah.
it really did.
Yeah.
And
Jeff, who
and
else
then we
do
also have
with us?
our good friend who bounces between Baltimore and Canada and my house. And when he comes by to visit, I am this little studio in Jeffrey Dahmer's basement is also Benjamin Young Savage's bedroom when he's here. So Benjamin Young Savage, good to have you again, man. We haven't had you on in a little minute. Back in the early AI days of one of our conversations. Welcome aboard.
It is good to be back. I'm a dedicated listener to your show. It's top of my podcasts, especially when I'm driving to Jeff's house. It's a great thing to listen to and catch up on all things tech, which is what I love to do. So glad to be back.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys.
Cool. And just to clarify that, Benjamin lives down by where Tom is in
That's right.
the DC-ish area, and has a friend, a significant other that is across the border in Canada, and I am halfway between there.
Yep, almost
So-
precisely halfway.
Yeah, so Benjamin comes here, has a nice dinner, occasionally a cocktail, and then goes the next day to Canada to do what he needs to do. So anyway, that's an interesting story. We won't spend too much time on this because we've got a lot of content and not a lot of time. But Benjamin is probably the only person that I have ever actually met from Twitter in person. That's how we became friends.
Wow.
Benjamin was posted some video about some guy around the Baltimore area whose car caught on fire, and requested, he was going to give the guy some assistance. It was an older gentleman, if I recall, and not necessarily financially secure. So Benjamin,
Yeah, his car blew up in front of me on the highway, and I pulled him out of it.
Wow.
It was burning.
Okay, that's quite a story.
yeah, right.
Wow. That's a little different than Jeff started with. Wow.
Yeah, I just said Twitter, which is also a car fire too, but that's another.
That's the other show, Jeff.
Yeah.
We've met up quite a number of times, and honestly, when we meet up, it's sort of a mini version of this particular show. So we exchange movies and shows and books and things that we're consuming and tech that we're interested in. It's very much on par with Basic AF. So.
And that's a great segue because movies and shows is what this particular episode is going to be about. We're going to very quickly talk about what turns out to be quite a lot of Apple TV Plus content. And Joe, Benjamin, both avid watchers of same. Tom is along for the ride.
He's here.
Not really. You've watched a couple.
Well, he said as he went through the list, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but you have seen or at least tasted a bunch of these.
I have, yeah, and I don't know, it was compared to the list that you gentlemen have put together, I'm feeling not so good about myself.
No, you should be feeling great about yourself because you're not burning hours watching Apple TV Plus content.
yeah, and so we're going to go through that, and I know we've teased this show a little bit, and I know Jeff has been excited to do this one, and just over discussions with Benjamin and Joe, we've found out that they were as well, so we thought we would bring them in to kind of broaden the analysis a little bit on it. Of course, Apple TV Plus debuted about a little over 5 years ago at this point. I think.
Yeah, it's been
2019
about
or something like that.
Yeah.
2019.
Mm-hmm.
And has added a lot of content. They started off with, like, a lot of the streaming services will start with catalog content that they license from other places. Apple didn't really do that. And so, but over those 5 years, they've added quite a lot.
Yeah, pretty impressive. And I think, there was when Apple first announced it, it was a big ha ha ha. Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Apple's going to get into television and movies. Right. Let's see how they do. The reality is, the content, the movies, let's not call it content, because in many cases it really is art. Content just sounds like. Yeah, we are the content. That's another conversation for another day.
Consumables, Jeff.
Yeah. Our information is consumable. It was, everybody kind of saw it as a joke, although they had some big names on hand. Steven Spielberg was going to be a part of it. Obviously Jennifer Aniston and some others were dried out on stage. Oprah, I think, if I remember correctly, was
Definitely
also there.
Oprah.
So a lot of big people, but everybody kind of thought, sure, right, they're going to get into this stuff. And I will say, true to Apple, in general, and they're taking, a standard thing that everybody uses and making it better. The stuff that Apple's producing is compelling. And unfortunately, because you have to have an Apple TV Plus account, and in many cases, Apple devices, not easy for everybody to get their hands on, which is unfortunate because there really is quite a lot of good.
I don't know, Jeff. I think that's actually a little bit a part of the appeal. I've been evangelizing Apple TV pretty hard lately, just because I've been enjoying it so much, and because it seems like every other streaming service is raising their prices. But I think the hard to get to-ness of Apple TV is actually something that makes it a little more alluring. I describe Apple TV as like boutique television and movies. It's like the movie theater in your neighborhood that's, small, but it's clean, it's well run, and they put real butter on the popcorn, and 90% of the time the shows and TVs and movies are really, really good. So I think if they were more easily accessible, it would be a problem. And the reality is that they are accessible. So I watch on a projector. I've got an Epson projector that partnered with I think Yamaha for a sound system, and you can log in without an Apple TV. They have the Apple TV app, and you can log in that way. I've been on vacation, and I think it was on a Roku in the Airbnb. You could log in with your Apple TV account and watch things there. So you don't necessarily need the hardware anymore like you used to. You can use a lot of other devices and just have the account, which is kind of nice.
So maybe it's you just really need to know that it's available to you on those devices, because you're right. Almost every TV that you buy, every quote-unquote smart TV.
Yeah, they tacked it onto Amazon Prime as an optional add-on as well.
You can subscribe, yeah. I saw that as well. And we had Amazon Fire Sticks for a long time, which mercifully I finally switched over to Apple TVs again. But it was there. It didn't work great, but it was there. It definitely works the best on Apple hardware.
It does.
But
it definitely
is
does.
accessible.
Yeah, and anything that you can AirPlay to. So, I mean, if you've got it on an iPad or a phone or your Mac, and if you can AirPlay to something, which a lot of TVs support AirPlay now too, right out of the box, that works really well. I think the amazing thing is there are really the number of quality shows and quality movies that Apple's producing. Is not to say, as Benjamin points out, that there aren't some bombs in there. There are definitely, a couple of things that we definitely will. But we will. and we might have to adjust, upgrade to Benjamin's 5-4-3-star rating system because my initial rating system was, I loved it. I liked it, and then meh, which made it simple. That was a 3-star rating system as opposed to a 5-star rating system. But we will post
something different too, right? So
yes, you did.
Just all went rogue. Sorry, Jeff.
We did, right? And nobody follows directions, and that's okay because typically neither do I.
Right. We learn from the best.
Yeah, you're welcome. But I think, in the show notes, we'll try to provide this, and I think we'll maybe just leave it as it is, if that works. Tom, is this too much for show notes?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, because there are character limits,
Right.
and so what I will do is I'll try to take it and with the host we have for our website, once the episode publishes, I can go in and add a lot more details. So what I'll do is we'll wait for the show to publish, and then that morning I'll go in and put this as best I can into that. So at least on the website, and I'll put a link to the website in the actual show notes that show up in your podcast player.
So all that to say, between Benjamin, Joe, Tom, and myself, and Tom has watched some stuff, as Benjamin pointed out, we have all watched seems like almost everything that's on Apple TV Plus.
I would push back against that. I last night went through the list, and what I did was I pulled up the Wikipedia page for all of the movies and shows that Apple TV has produced, and I haven't even touched half the catalog.
Seriously?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. So
there's a lot more out there that I haven't even approached because it's just not on my radar. And you guys haven't approached it either. So I would push back against that. They've got a bigger catalog than we're even going to touch on in this show.
All right, fair. I will take that spanking. Thank you, Benjamin.
So really quickly, why do you think? So I think the consensus, and not just from the four of us, but others as well, content-wise, very good. Like very, very good, generally speaking. So what do you think the holdup is for, I'll say market share, but for them to grow the audience that sees these things? Because we've got Prime Video at the top that gets kind of lumped in with the Prime subscriptions, so that might be a little bit inflated. Of course, Netflix has been around forever with DVD by mail, so when they went to streaming, they were already fairly well established. And then Disney came into the scene. We've got Max, which is a terrible name for what I guess used to be HBO Max, if I recall.
Yeah. It used to just be HBO.
We'll talk branding mistakes on another episode, Tom.
Right. Yeah. And then, Hulu, Paramount Plus, and Peacock, just in the list that we put together. But there are even more, right? There's Tubi, there's all this other stuff. Apple's coming in about 7%. U.S. anyway, in December of last year, which was down from 8% the quarter before, and whatever. Who knows how exact those numbers are.
And what's missing from your list, and I'm not sure where it even fits, is YouTube, the behemoth.
Right.
You can watch movies, stream shows on YouTube, and people don't really consider it a streaming platform like they do with these Netflix and Amazon Prime. So, and I agree. I think those Prime Videos numbers are a little inflated. Yeah. I would be interested to see, number of hours watched as a better metric, just because, so many people have Prime accounts and they don't use any of the other services like the music and the podcasts and the video. So,
yeah, I think Apple TV, it reminds me of what HBO used to be. So it sort of has a little bit of a prestige element to it. They do less, but typically do it better. Apple TV also, from my experience, doesn't have the series that some of these other streaming channels have. Cable shows like The Big Bang Theory, The Office, all those shows that I feel like a lot of people with more time than me, to be honest, are just kind of putting on and enjoying, right? It's a little trip down memory lane. And I know there's some of that on Apple TV Plus, but not to the level of, I feel like, some of the other big streamers.
I think that's actually a good thing.
I agree. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that makes Apple TV Plus good, is that they didn't fill their back catalog with stuffing. If you go down on Netflix and Amazon Prime Video, and you scroll more than 3 times, you start to get some really, really terrible options. And it's movies and shows that they acquired the license to make their catalog bigger. And some people watch them, most people don't. They've got 3 to 5 stars on IMDb, which is a 10-star system. And they're just awful, but they're using them as filler. And because Apple TV is producing almost all of its own content, it doesn't have that. It doesn't have any show that doesn't meet its standard of quality. So it's very much a walled garden, just like their App Store is.
Yeah. And I think what they've missed so far, and potentially Severance could be that, Ted Lasso was to a point, I think, is kind of like the cultural hit. Right. That Netflix had, right? They did that, what was it? How to Catch a Killer or whatever that was. They've had the Menendez brothers that came out, and that got,
Tiger King during COVID.
Right. Tiger King was huge.
Right.
Yeah.
Even I watched that.
And you can debate the quality of those shows, but it got a lot of attention.
It's a cultural touchstone. Yeah.
Right. And I think they've lacked that to this point. Netflix has pivoted a little bit and has gotten into live sports. So of course they had the Tyson Paul fight, which I forget
Lasted
how many
forever.
tens of millions of people. Yeah, that was quite an event. The fight sucked, but that was to be expected. That was
really
a promotional thing. That really wasn't a fight. I mean, it was a promotional thing. They both walked away with a lot of money.
They really did. They fleeced all of us.
Yeah, but they had NFL on Christmas Day. They are now the exclusive provider for WWE's Monday Night Raw.
Tommy's favorite.
I keep up with it on the socials. Again, I don't watch it because it's 3 hours long every Monday. I don't have time for that. But something interesting, and then we'll get back to Apple TV because that's really what it's about. But I did see some of the leadership on the creative side for the WWE. What they said they liked about the Netflix arrangement is because it had always been broadcast TV, so you had time slots. It was always 8 to 11. Mm-hmm. And so the show was 3 hours because the show had to be 3 hours. And they're like, well, on Netflix, we have more creative control. If we want to spin up a random 90-minute something and publish it, it's instantly available. We can do it. We don't have to wait till Monday night. We can do a 15-minute teaser for something that's coming up down the road. So that was interesting that cable, typical, your usual broadcast systems didn't give. So we'll see how that goes. But back to Apple TV.
Yeah, let me say one more thing. Just with regard to that and sports, every single one of these services is getting into sports streaming in some way. You've got a list here. You have Amazon Prime down to Peacock. Every single one of those, including Apple, is doing some kind of sports streaming. Apple's got a contract with MLS, like the worst soccer on the planet, but there it is.
Well, that's kind of the point, though, for me. For that, it's like they've got a gazillion dollars. And YouTube landed Sunday Ticket.
Right.
And that would have brought a ton of people.
Mm-hmm.
And they missed that one. They haven't done anything NFL yet. They've done MLB, Friday Night Baseball.
Yep. Which is okay. Gotten better.
Yeah, but baseball's ratings aren't great. So that's
I'm
not going to draw a bunch of
the NFL
people.
wanted too much control, is my guess. And Apple didn't want to let something go, but who knows?
Right. Yeah. Who knows? And I think YouTube locked that down for I forget how many years. So that's not going to be a thing for a while. The Netflix NFL stuff was pretty good. Like everybody was concerned because there were streaming issues with the fight, but the NFL stuff, I didn't hear anybody really complain. It looked good when I was watching. But
what's annoying to me, though, is that they're not really offering anything different. The service that they're offering is essentially the same thing as what cable offered, when you subscribe to the sports package or whatever. I'd be interested, this is a totally different technology from cable. There's a lot more opportunities for interaction. There's a lot more opportunities for, doing stuff with second screens. I did see, what they're doing with the Apple Vision Pro, where you can, kind of see the field and stuff like that, where they're planning on a lot of other things. But for the most part, it's what Netflix is offering for sports is the same thing that cable offered. And so the only the only upside is that you can watch it whenever you want. But, everybody wants to watch something like that live anyway. So I can't imagine that the viewership for repeats is very high.
Yeah. And the downside is that in order for you to see all the games that you want to see, you have to be subscribed to every single one of these services, which is a pain in the neck.
Yes.
Yep.
Monday Night Football, I think, is on ESPN. Is that what it was on?
Yep.
I couldn't watch it. I don't have ESPN. I do have the Disney package, which has ESPN on it, but not anything live.
I have the NFL app to watch football. It's $7 a month.
Okay.
But all the things I get, though,
to-
are the local games.
To Twitter feeds and just hit refresh.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's just almost just as good.
Anyway, back to the thing that we wanted to talk about. I mean, it's important, I think, to talk about the streaming services because there are a million, and you can spend more money than you ever did on cable, and probably do, and that's a pain in the neck. But really want to get back to what it is that's available on Apple TV and what's great about it. So, Benjamin, why don't we start with you, and then we'll jump to Joe. You have a fine list here of about 500 things that we'll never be able to get
Benjamin,
through.
you should publish this after.
Yeah. I think you're going to want to see this. But why don't you give us two things to start? Why don't you top? I know there's asking for a lot. Give us a TV show and a movie.
Well, before I do that, I will say that the way that I got to Apple TV was through their bundle plan, and I think that's something that people should know is that I was not looking forward to subscribing to another service, but because Apple offered it as part of I think I got the Apple One. It came with it, and so I started, just checking it in my regular perusal of streaming apps, and I started watching stuff on here, and I haven't looked back. My top. So I did a star rating system. My top shows that I have watched that I truly enjoy are For All Mankind, Foundation, Severance, Silo, and Masters of the Air. Those I think are the tip top in terms of TV shows. We're not going into movies right now of what Apple TV has created, and they're just all around good shows. They have excellent writing. Serialization is something that's super important for me when it comes to shows. Is a show that ends each episode with making you want to watch more rather than bore you. They all do that. They all have movie quality special effects. There's nothing cheap about these shows. And they all offer unique takes on stories that are familiar. So you're not coming into these, with art house style storytelling. It's something that's familiar and enjoyable, but has been given a little more care, I would say. I think TV shows traditionally have received a lot less attention just because it's a made for TV, it's a throwaway thing, right? And so they don't necessarily put the extra money into special effects or the storytelling or the acting and those kinds of things. But I really feel like Apple TV, with its wealth, has been able to sink the money into these and really do a great job. My top right now, I would say, are Foundation and Silo. Those are my very two favorite. I can't wait for new episodes to drop. Silo's season 2 finale was last night, and I don't know if any of you have caught up on it, but it is a wild ride. The last 10-15 minutes or so are something that resets your entire framework for what you thought the show was going to be, which is really great.
2 more seasons of that planned, right?
I'm not sure.
I think so. I think
is that what
night.
they've logged?
Yeah,
so I know that
two.
It's limited by the books, which I'm not touching until this series is over. That's another philosophy that I have. I don't read the books until after I watch the show, because you're never disappointed because the books are always better. So I'm not touching the books. I know that it's limited by the books. So it's 2 seasons more. So it's going to be
That's what I
4.
read. Yeah, 3 and 4. Yeah.
That feels about right for where things are right now in the series. But honestly, the world itself is big, so they could totally do spin-offs if they really, really wanted to. For those who are not familiar with Silo at all, it's post-apocalyptic. Everybody is trapped in silos, and I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to reveal there's these 50 silos, 51.
53.
And 53, is it? And then each silo, there's these big tubes in the ground, has 10,000 people in them. And the world, or at least the United States, has suffered a nuclear war. And so it's not safe to go outside. And that's the basis of the show. People deciding whether or not it is safe enough to go outside again. And it is very, very good. It's character driven. You have a lot of different personalities, but it's also there's mystery components in there because you don't really know why they're trapped in there and what the rules are. And there's this, shadowy government system.
Yeah. Very, very, very good. Very cool. All right. I have a couple of questions in the midst of these, but what I want to do first is, Joe, TV shows. Why don't you give us a couple of your faves?
Yeah. So I would say, it's tough, like you said, because there's a lot of good ones. Also, I have to sort of put a caveat that a lot of these shows, especially if they've been released more recently, I have not completed because those kids I mentioned before we started the show, who I had to bundle into a car and get them out of here. There's not a lot of TV time, and it's usually on an iPad while I'm doing the dishes or making lunches. So with that said, one of the shows I watched fully on TV was Dickinson. I'm not sure if any of you have seen that.
I have not watched that one.
Yeah, it was early on when I think Apple TV Plus was free. I feel like they were giving it away at that point, or maybe I had bought a device.
I think they did. I think they gave like a year free when you bought something.
That's what I thought. So it's basically about Emily Dickinson, and it's way more interesting, sort of goes beyond just her writing and who she was, because it sort of uses anachronisms to kind of bring in modern language, dance, comedy. So really enjoyed that one. Slow Horses is incredible. That's one show I devour. And I'm always so excited when at the end of the series, they tell you there's going to be another series. And then Ted Lasso. I feel like Ted Lasso is what started it all, and was a show that I jumped into in the middle of the pandemic, and it was just everything I needed, everything I still need. So particularly the first season, the other couple seasons were a little uneven. First season, I still go back to and just watch bits of.
Yeah, that was really, it was touching, particularly that first season.
It really was
very, very touching. I agree with you. So in my list of series, Bad Sisters runs this first season. I haven't seen the second season of that yet, but I will tell you that the first season of Bad Sisters was clever, dark, which tends to be something that I really like. Also, among the others, because you guys have already knocked down a few that I really like. Presumed Innocent which is a remake of a movie that you didn't think needed to be remade, and I will tell you that that one is another one that Apple really, in terms of the quality of the writing, the quality of the. Again, this is another dark one, but the quality of it feels dangerous, that show. There's a lot that goes on in Presumed Innocent that feels a little challenging. It made you had to think. You find yourself on the side of certain characters, and suddenly you don't belong on that side anymore, which is something I really liked. And then this one kind of has fallen under the radar. Blackbird, which is. I would just say watch Blackbird. It's another dark one. The short premise of that is a young kid gets himself into trouble, gets thrown in jail, and in order to get himself out, he has to come alongside and befriend this guy that's a serial killer or has been a serial killer, but they're missing bodies, and so they want to find out where those bodies are. That show to me was pretty amazing, and this is in addition to the others that both of you have mentioned.
I do think that's part of the beauty of the Apple TV system, though, is that I respect both of you. Joe, I know less of, but I've been listening to you on the podcast, and you both have excellent tastes, and yet
thank you
have both listed shows that are entirely different, and a lot of the shows that you guys have listed I haven't even touched. I haven't even seen the previews for, and so the quality and variety that's there is kind of astounding, even though their catalog is a lot more limited. Like I said before, there's a lot less filler. And so there's all these good meaty shows. I'm looking forward to getting into Slow Horses. I haven't touched that. I'm looking forward to getting into Ted Lasso. I haven't touched that. I'm mostly, as you can see from my list, consuming a lot of their sci-fi content because that's what I love, and I really think they do a great job at that. But it's very, very clear that that Apple TV is firing on all cylinders. They're really hitting all the marks when it terms like Joe said, they don't have the necessarily fluffy comedies as much, but they've got really deep and powerful stuff.
And they do have some good comedies too.
Yeah, they do.
They're just a little lower on my list. Yeah. But you're right.
But they're not. Yeah. You're right in that they're not to the level of The Office. We don't have classics yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we will eventually.
Yeah.
And Tom, you.
Oh, hi, Tom.
Oh, hey guys.
Tom was cleaning the pod closet.
Yeah, he was reading a book. Actually, looked really interesting.
Dozed off there for a second, all because I didn't get to talk. No, so I have looked. Let's see. So back during it was a little later on in pandemic. I think it was 2021. Got into Tiny World. I don't know if any of you have watched that. I watched it with the kids.
I like Tiny World. Paul Rudd.
Yeah, narrates it, and it's nature wildlife show. And
cool.
They stick cameras around and watch the critters do what the critters
cool.
do. But shot really, really well. Narration is good, and we watched all those. Then I've watched a little bit of For All Mankind. I think I got through 4 episodes of that. A little bit of Pachinko. On the movie side, we watched The Family Plan one night. We were bored, and we were like, I wonder if this is any good. And I think Mark Wahlberg's in that. And he's got a hidden, I think he may have been an assassin or something, but it was hidden from his family.
Yeah.
And he was supposed to be some car salesman or something. Wouldn't say it's their deepest content, but we enjoyed it because it was, 90 minutes of fun.
Right.
And then I did watch season 1 of Severance, which I thought was really good. My thing is I'm not too terribly patient. I don't like to sit down for 50 minutes and just watch TV. And so that's why I think, I mentioned in the emails that we had going back and forth before we started that, YouTube kind of fits my time situation a little bit better because they're 10 to 20 minutes. The stuff I watch anyway, because of course you can watch longer form there too. And so usually what I will do if I'm riding my indoor bike is I'll put the iPad up on that, pull something up on YouTube. Now I could easily do it, watch Apple TV Plus content too, but I think that goes back to the earlier discussion. It's not top of mind. And my wife watches a ton of streaming content. I mean, probably more than the 4 of us put together.
Now,
Get her on, Tom.
Great.
Is that in going back to our habits, is that something that you do together at all? Do you guys watch any shows together?
No, not really. She has different tastes. And she likes a lot of, she watches a lot of Korean shows, which is funny because she reads the captions.
Vietnamese.
She's Vietnamese and watches the Korean dramas and stuff. which I've watched some of those too. And Netflix has most of that stuff that she watches. But I asked her about Apple TV Plus, and I reached out to my brothers today too to see what they do. And like, well, I just don't think about it because we're watching everything on Netflix and Hulu and the other places. But and so that's my primary reason for it, because it's like it's just such a premium on time. Joan, you and I were messaging about that this week. That it just I have trouble fitting it in places, and so that's why it's fairly limited for me.
Yeah, I know for Jeff and I, it's more of a ritual. So, like Jeff mentioned earlier, my partner, my significant other, is in Montreal, and so we're in a long distance relationship, and so watching shows together is one of the ways that we end our day. We'll talk about our day, and then we'll put on a show and enjoy some really good content. And I've sat with Jeff and gotten bits and pieces of a lot of different shows whenever I visit him, because that's what he also does, is that he ends his day with a nice cup of tea and a show that they'll watch together. Joe, how about you? What's your ritual around watching TV?
It's not what I like, because my wife and I used to watch shows together. We have similar taste. And because of the two kids, both my kids are actually night owls. They're like 3 and 5, but they like to go to bed at like 10, which is 2 hours later than I think their exhausted parents would prefer. So to answer your question, Benjamin, we typically have one show that we watch together. Right now it's Bad Monkey, which I think is maybe on all of our list. I don't know, but it is.
I like that show.
Yeah. Every time I watch it, I just think Vince Vaughn, this was just made for this show. And it was, it's a very good show. I think we're on episode 6, because we're maybe able to watch an episode every week or two at this point. So I actually kind of miss that. Watching TV while I'm doing the dishes is not as enjoyable as sitting down in front of the big screen, relaxed. But
especially Apple TV, because I feel like their shows are so dense. I find that for most of these shows, I really can't do anything else. Tom, to your point of getting on the treadmill and going, I'm not sure that I could do that with Silo. There's so much in the dialogue, and it's honestly, this actually bothers me a little bit. It's a dark show. So like I said, I watch shows on a projector, and if there's any other lights, it's kind of annoying to watch because it's very dark.
That's a good point.
And so if you're running on a treadmill or using an exercise bicycle, it's a little tough to see.
And by dark, by the way, it is dark in terms
physically
of content,
dark,
but it's also dark in
content
terms
dark.
of where the place
the filming
is.
style and the whole. But the only thing, just a quick note about Silo, is I'm up just like halfway through season 1, and I'm enjoying it, guys, but I'm a little worried. And what you're saying here makes me feel better. Do you remember Lost? Like, I got a little bit of that, like, I hope, and I honestly didn't know it was based on books, so that makes me feel better, because we know where the story's going.
Yes.
But I got a little nervous there.
I do know that the books have a solid arc and ending, and I was afraid of that.
That's
too.
all we needed.
I did watch parties with Lost, and
so did I.
20 friends would get together every week in somebody's basement. We rotated, and we provided snacks and made a whole ordeal. And we had at least an hour after every episode where we would just, spin conspiracy theories. And then was one of the most disappointing endings of any show that I've ever seen ever. Although Game of Thrones,
I think got burned.
Game of Thrones was up there too.
Yeah.
I did watch that.
I do know that it has an arc and that it is planned out. And so,
okay. I'm relieved.
I have some
Sorry
hope,
for the tangent.
Have
but
some
I'm
hope there. I'm like you. I actually usually don't start a show until the entire set of seasons has been completed. I'm not usually one to watch live because of Lost, because I was burned so badly by Lost.
You'll never forget
Game of Thrones. So I usually wait. But yeah, Tom, are you going to watch Severance season 2? What do you think?
Probably at some point. I'll just as you referred to there, I will probably wait until they're all out, and then kind of see what the general feel for it is, and then sit down, because the programming differences between some of the servers, like Netflix likes to throw everything out. You binge watch it, you're done, move on to the next.
Squid Game.
Apple kind of takes, and probably some others takes kind of the traditional, there's a new episode every week, which, you know, HBO did with Sopranos and a bunch of their stuff, and the traditional take. I don't have a strong preference either way as far as consuming it, but I do tend to lean more towards once it's all out, I like that approach, because if I'm into it, then I can take a weekend and watch it, and then I'm done, and then I can go back and do something else. And to be honest, sometimes it's hard for me if it's a weekly. Be like, I'm not coming back next week because I'll have 100 things going on. You know, like this weekend's a great example. Like, you know, we've got 4 playoff games in the NFL, and then we've got conference championships and all that stuff. So I'm not going to. Any viewing time I have is going to be wasted on that for the next couple of weeks. But even that, I mean, that's a little easier because it's background. You don't have to pay so close attention. I mean, there's so many audible cues to know when something's going on to get your head to pop up and look. But
I'm with you on that. I actually prefer, you know, the everything all out at once so that you can binge watch if you really want to. But I think that I don't mind it from Apple TV just because the quality's there. You know, with these shows, like I said, serialization is really important for me. And so I have yet to get to an episode on most of these where I'm just like, well, I'm not picking that up again. You know, I like to put the investment into things that are going to be good quality. Usually, most of the time, I actually don't watch TV shows. I watch movies because I know, like Joe said, there's going to be a solid start and a solid end. But because Apple TV's quality is so high, I am more willing to be trusting of them.
Yeah. And for the people that do watch, like every week, like, you know, the first episode of Severance season 2 was yesterday as we record this on Saturday, January 18th. But it builds buzz, right? Because I remember Game of Thrones when that was super hot, right? It was white hot, and people were like, oh my gosh, the new Game of Thrones is coming out. And social, that's all you saw. Like if you were scrolling Twitter when Game of Thrones was going on, right?
Yeah.
It was,
especially the last meme.
Yeah.
That last meme was brilliant.
There's definitely something to that, that method as well.
All right, we're almost at time because we don't really want to blow past all this, which means we probably could have done like 3 episodes on this, one of the movies. I want to point out Killers of the Flower Moon, which is a movie that Apple did, released in theaters first and then came to Apple TV Plus. One of the best movies of the last year, as far as I'm concerned. It really is an amazing thing.
How many of those have they done where they go movie first and then to Apple TV
Plus? Not a
Just
lot.
A couple, right? A
couple,
maybe.
But you know, that was a Scorsese. You know, with a pretty hefty cast. And honestly, I saw it originally in the movie theater. I was when that came out.
Did it do well in theaters? Like, does it?
It did.
It did.
It really did. And maybe maybe it's not last year. Maybe it's the year before. I think it was the year before. It's not. Time flies now because I'm old. Yeah. But their movie content, you know, what they're doing that way when they're making movies, again, they are not just throwing garbage out there. So that was one that I thought, if you haven't seen Killers of the Flower Moon, it's a long movie. It's 3+ hours, so you need to be able to.
3 hours.
Yeah, right.
Nah, man, I'm out.
Tom's doing it. Tom's doing that in week-long segments. Like, again, I can watch the movie over a period of a week. It is really worth seeing, and there's a lot of really good children's content on Apple TV Plus as well. One of the ones I thought, which is based on a book that I really love, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse.
I can't wait to see that. I still haven't watched that, and that's on my top list.
Should be among all the things that you watch. The book is quite good too, which, by the way, Bad Monkey is based on a Carl Hiaasen book, which is I read before that show ever came out. Really good. Usual Carl Hiaasen hijinks.
Yeah, I've heard it's a good book.
It is. Yeah, I'll lend it to you. You're not that far away. I'll drive it over.
No, right? Yeah, you're right. Meet in the middle sometime, Jeff.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
Any other movies or any other, as we kind of close this out, actually, let's do 2 things. Joe, we'll start with you. A movie suggestion or another maybe documentary suggestion, and then one thing that maybe you panned. And then Benjamin, same for you. Tom, you pan everything. So it doesn't matter.
3 hours.
Look at he's in daydream land
Yeah, I
over
think he's answering work email.
No, I was looking to see.
Oh my!
No, I was looking to see what Killers of the Flower Moon did at the box office.
I would also say this about Killers of the Flower Moon before we jump too far, is that the book is also excellent, and the writer for that book has put out nothing but amazing work. So I don't know if you have the time to read, but if you do, I strongly suggest looking him up.
So,
All right,
just
cool.
so we can inform the audience, because we've talked about it. In this article published December 3rd, 2023, it had done $158 million at the box office.
Wow.
But the budget was $200 million.
Oh.
Yeah, well, streaming pays for that stuff.
Yeah, right. There's a tax write-off there somewhere.
Yeah,
Apple's
and it was
money.
well worth it.
Right. Services revenue, guys. We're all hooked.
Like the money
So I
guys
have not
making
watched
off of this show.
Right. Yes. I'm still waiting for my check. I'm just going to say.
Yeah, you'll
get
get
the
it
mail.
Soon,
In the mail.
don't worry.
right after Tom and I get our checks.
Right, of course.
Yeah. How many zeros do you want on the
trickle down,
end of
trickle
it?
down.
They'll all be after the decimal point, but we can put as many as you want.
Yeah, throw them in there.
All right, Joe.
Yeah. Movies, I have not done a lot. And honestly, more than half of them have had Tom Hanks in them.
Yeah.
But I would say the Steve Martin documentary was brilliant. It was, as the title says, Steve Martin, a documentary in 2 pieces.
Yeah.
And it was.
I would say that one made me cry.
It was
really
beautiful.
It was really,
yeah.
really well done.
Visually, everything, the audio. I actually had the pleasure of watching most of at least one of the episodes in a chunk by myself in the living room with a fire going, and it was like, this is pretty nice, right? This is how content's meant to be. Documentaries are meant to be enjoyed. Something that didn't work for me, and the challenge for me is, if it doesn't work for me, I typically just stop watching it. But I watched The Problem with Jon Stewart for a number of episodes. I'm one of those people who grew up, watching The Daily Show when Jon Stewart was on, and it just didn't hit for me. I thought he was trying to cover some really important topics, but it just didn't quite vibe for me. And as we know, probably I don't think it worked for Apple too after a while, because
It didn't work for Jon Stewart either.
Right. I mean, I think he made the right choice for himself to go, and he's back on The Daily Show, which I watch his segment on YouTube. To your point, Tom, which I do a fair amount on YouTube, and I enjoy that. So I feel like maybe it's just what I want. Maybe it's the comfort of what I used to watch when I was in
I think it was too long. I don't know about you, Joe, but I enjoyed it, but it felt like it was too long. The nice thing about The Daily Show is that, all the segments are short. It's short and sweet.
True,
the
right.
point gets some laughs and hit some hard points. But the problem with Jon Stewart was one issue that they dragged out over 45 minutes or so.
Yeah, right. I think it just didn't work. I think you're right.
All right, Benjamin.
All right. I got to mention Swan Song. Swan Song is just a really great movie. It not a lot of people know about it.
I don't. So tell me.
Psychological romantic sci-fi movie. It feels like an expanded Black Mirror episode, but it's a little bit harder hitting. But it's a solid movie. I know that you didn't like it, but I enjoyed Wolves quite a bit.
Yeah,
just because it felt like it was a film that Brad Pitt and George Clooney wanted to do. I feel like they often get roped into doing things that is they're obligated to do, but this just felt like them having fun to me.
Felt like a lesser Oceans movie to me.
It
is
did,
what it felt
did,
like.
but
It was not. It didn't rise to the level of the Oceans movie.
No, did not rise to the level of the Oceans. Just I think mostly because it was just the two of them. It didn't have a whole gigantic cast. I also really liked Still, which is another biopic documentary, which is about Michael J. Fox. And Michael J. Fox has kind of stayed out of the public eye quite a bit, since his diagnosis. And this really gets into, what happened and where he is now. It's really honest. It will also make you cry. But I am just baffled at how they made it, because with stunt doubles and with using footage from his previous shows and movies, they recreate his life. So they
wow.
use this. Yeah, they use the sets and things that are happening in the movies that he played in to illustrate what was happening in his actual real life, which is stunning to me. Like, you see him as a young man, as he's talking about being a young man, but the footage, even though it feels like it's freshly shot and, you know, it's telling this narrative of him as a young man, it's actually pulled a lot of footage from the different shows and movies that he was in. So it's really, really well done. I highly recommend that. I will say that I don't think that their movie offerings are as strong as their TV shows. But the ones that I have watched, and especially their documentaries, are solid. I do want to say that they're not great at everything. Emancipation was absolutely awful. My God, Will Smith bombed that movie. It was just, and I only throw that in there just to prove that Apple TV can make mistakes. Napoleon, I enjoyed. It was big and high budget, but the accent choice was just, I don't know. It ruined everything. But those are my picks.
Okay. Emancipation, by the way, I think it probably didn't feel as good after his Haymaker. You know, that was released shortly after.
That was
after.
Well, there's also just so many other movies. Like 12 Years a Slave is such a better movie, and so, like, you know, unless you're trying to do something new, which they really weren't. They were just telling another slave story. Unless you're trying to do something new, you're just kind of fall into this rut. So
fair.
It's too bad.
Fair. Tom.
Jeff.
You like
and
me.
back to
Okay.
you.
Okay, great.
I honestly, I don't. I because I haven't watched enough. Other than
Okay,
Severance, and, you know, check that out if you haven't.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so I'm going to throw a documentary, The Pigeon Tunnel, which is about John le Carré, which I highly recommend. Really, really interesting. That guy's backstory for all his really good spy novels, you know, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy and a number of others. He was quite the spy himself. It really is a pretty interesting watching. He's interesting reading too.
Read too.
But the documentary about him is pretty great. And one other one I'll throw in that didn't really get a lot of play, but I thought was really good, was The Tragedy of Macbeth. Which was black and white version of Macbeth with, oh my God, who is it? Denzel Washington's in it and plays Macbeth, and it's killer. I thought it was quite good, so would highly recommend that. I think the bottom line of this whole show is that you know, if you've been missing Apple TV Plus, like if you haven't watched anything on it, you know, you could probably burn all your other accounts and come over here, and in all likelihood, especially if you're you know, if you're using Apple One or Apple One Premiere, you've got access to all this, and if you have access to all of it, you should be making use of it. Apple really is producing great TV, great documentaries. 10% of their movies are really, really good, maybe 20. But there's a lot there. So
I will say that's honestly where I am now. You know, I check Apple TV first before I go to any of the other apps if I'm looking for something new to watch, just because I know the quality is going to be there. You know, Netflix is going to be hit or miss. Prime is going to be hit or miss. Everything else is hit or miss.
Except for The Boys on Prime, man. That's a show. Anyway, we could spend hours talking, and we've already burned nearly an hour of your time. So, and by you, we're talking to our listeners, which we have a lot of now. You know, we're not up in Joe Rogan territory yet, but we're you know, up in.
Is that your goal, Jeff? You want to be Joe Rogan?
I don't want to be him. I want to overtake him. That's my. I think what Mahomes is it? No. It's one of the Kelseys. The wife of one of the Kelseys, I think, is now overtaken him. But anyway, we don't need to talk about that.
Yeah, can they go away? By the way, the Kelseys.
Yeah, well, whatever.
I've had enough of the Kelseys.
They're on
Now,
my cereal now.
I need to preface that by saying I'm a Denver Broncos fan, so Travis Kelce, I'm already, he's a chief. Yeah. So I'm like, I can't like him. He might be a nice guy. I have no idea.
It's not allowed.
But as long as he's a chief, I can't like him. But anyway, continue, Jeff.
Anyway,
Wrap us up. Take us home, if you will.
So that's exactly where I was headed, Tom, and didn't tell you interrupted us with the Denver Broncos.
He's bored.
By the way,
Come on.
Sorry,
By the way,
yeah, I know he is.
Shout out
It's
Bills
dull.
Mafia. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you got some real traction with the Bills Mafia, didn't
That
you?
was nuts. Like, I totally didn't expect it. So they knocked Denver out of the playoff. We'll keep it short because I know we're long on time. But they knocked Denver out of the playoffs in the wild card. And I made what I thought was just a very, one-off post on Threads that was like, we were overmatched, but, teams, Broncos' future's looking good. We've got a quarterback now, but I'm going to, as long as somebody beats the Chiefs, good, I think I'll go ride with the Bills the rest of the way. And oh my gosh, I got like 100 comments. I've got new best friends in Buffalo. They're like, your quarterback is great. Thanks for your support. One guy was like, okay, now that you're in the Mafia, you have to eat wings and say, go Bills to anybody you see wearing a Bills shirt. I'm like, man, I may have to actually take a road trip up there in like September for a game. I'm not going after that. It's too cold. But
You're right now. Unless you want to shovel
I was
the
blown
stadium.
away. Like, you would expect.
shovel the stadium.
Yeah,
I
maybe
used to
some
be a
kind of
Bills
trash
fan,
talk.
So, yeah, no, they're nice
But
people up there.
Wasn't any of that. Like, they were all genuinely nice comments. I was
Yeah.
blown away by it. Yeah.
Alrighty. So show music, Celsius 7. We're in Psychokinetics. We are so grateful for the show music. I think it fits us to a T. Our artwork, our show artwork, Random Art Design. Joe Moyer, why don't you tell us where we can find you?
You can find my biweekly newsletter, which has been a little less biweekly because of my new job, but I'm getting back there. You can go to thejournalingguide.com. It's all about journaling and sort of finding yourself through the page and through other formats just to get in touch with who you are and where you want to be. I write at 24letters.net. You can either use the numbers or you can spell out 24. And then I'm on Threads at the Journaling Guide, and I have a Blue Sky that is there too, also at the Journaling Guide.
All right. And I want to point out, I think I said this at the beginning of the show, but Joe's episode with us as the Journaling Guide is presently our top episode, or one of our very top episodes.
It's at the top, yeah.
And it is for everyone. The nice thing about that episode is it's not just two morons talking tech. It's actually something valuable for your life. So we encourage you to go check out that episode as well. Benjamin, talk about yourself.
So yeah, I have a website on the internets. It's it's benyoungsavage.com. You're not going to spell it right, so check it out in the show notes. But it does have everything there. So I do a lot of things. I'm a photographer. I'm an illustrator. I'm a designer. I make short videos now. But all of that stuff is there. You go to the site. You can choose what you want to look at, and then all of my socials, I think 200 of them, are linked down in the bottom of the footer. I make it my one of my missions to be on every social media platform that is known to man. So yeah, you can find me on everything.
And you post some really interesting things.
Yes, I try. It's all handcrafted. I look in my spare time. I find different interesting things all over the internet, and then when I think that they're worth sharing, I reshare them. So definitely check that out. That's interspersed on my social media with all of the art and everything else that I post.
Cool. Great art too.
Yeah, I like your design work too, Benjamin.
Thank
It's very,
you.
very
Yeah,
nice. Very good stuff.
great.
You're welcome.
I will say that about your sports team, Tom. They have a decent logo, but that's all I know about them.
Well, they refreshed the uniforms and everything this
Yes.
year. So, yeah, and
Great
those
design.
throwbacks they did, ooh, they are hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I may have to grab one of those. But anyway, this is not a sports show.
As always, feedback at basicafshow.com. Like us, subscribe to us on your various podcast platforms. We're everywhere you want to be, and probably some places you don't want to be. And you can also, within your podcasting app, you can send us a voice message. You can click a little link there that will allow you to leave us a voicemail or send us an email. So do it. Talk to us. And again, we're so grateful for everybody. If you stuck around this long into the 59th minute of this podcast, we really appreciate the fact that you are there for us. And we mean that sincerely.
Yes, we do.
Tom?
We do. So, Benjamin, Joe, thank you so much. Good catching up. I know, Benjamin, we haven't seen you for a while, so good to talk to you. I know we a little bit on Jeff does, yeah. So, Maybe I'll have
pleasure,
to time
guys.
that out and I'll come up sometime.
There you go.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Basic AF road trip.
We can all meet at my house.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
So I don't have to go anywhere.
I see what you did there, Jeff. I see what you did.
But seriously, guys, thanks for spending some time with us on the weekend. I know you're both busy, and we do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
All right, show notes for this episode, if you're still listening. Man, you really do like punishment, but they can be found at basicafshow.com/53. This is episode 53. So thanks again, everybody, for being here. As we always say, we do greatly appreciate it. Until the next time, enjoy the rest of your day or night.
See ya.